Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning.
This is a special lively group this morning, and that's good.
Good morning.
This is a special annual service here at the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. Is the honoring and deepening our relationship with the Nisenan people. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that Shelly Covert had a family emergency this morning, will not be able to be here as our special guest and our special speaker. So we send her and her family love and good wishes, and we'll be thinking of her throughout the service. Sorry, guys.
There it is. Here, each Sunday, we renew our commitment to remember.
In our commitment to be in right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on our altar each week.
We do this every Sunday to remind ourselves to pay attention, to learn, to remember that the effects of history continue to live in people's lives and in their bodies, including our own. And why acorns? Because acorns were a vital source of sustenance for the Nisenan. And because the oak trees carry the effects of history in their bodies too.
In doing so, we acknowledge the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible after generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history.
Still here, and understandably cautious about being seen. May we see what the Nisenan want us to see.
We understand that we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and that the original tribal families have yet to recover from the genocide of their people.
And I like to point out that ceded is spelled C-E-D-E-D, meaning never given up. It's important to know that this land was taken and that genocide is the accurate word.
As residents or visitors in Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition.
May we offer our support with respect and care, with commitment and hope, with humility and with love.
Standing on
Good morning again. I'm Cheryl Morris, and Beth Caro and I are your worship associates this morning. We're joined in planning and presenting this service by members of the UUCM Nisenan project team. To start on a personal note, I have learned a great deal in preparing for this service and am grateful for the opportunity to participate in it. It takes a certain amount of courage for me to be up here always, and especially today, I feel humbled by how much I have to learn. I'm sure we are all quite aware that this is also the first Sunday of Kevin's sabbatical, so perhaps I'm not the only one seeking an extra dose of courage this morning. In case you've forgotten, very appropriately, the theme for this month's services is the path of courage. From what I know of Shelly, she has so clearly chosen to walk this path. The intent of this service, as articulated by Kevin and Shelly, is to invite the congregation into open and honest conversation, including the questions we have been afraid to ask. We do have members of our task force that will be facilitating a conversation today. And we encourage you to think of questions, write them down. The greeters will be circulating, passing pencils and paper so you can just jot things down as they occur to you. Folks on...
Raise your hand if you need.
Yeah, raise your hand if you want.
Get it when it came in. There you go.
Right.
Dean will get
And
it to you.
yeah, and if you want them to pick up something from you, they'll be attentive to that. People on Zoom, of course, can type into the chat. Whether you're with us in person or on Zoom, here in Grass Valley or far away, you're all so welcome here.
Good morning. We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that we all are on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless bipeds. We are all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny.
We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering, and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing, being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best we may.
We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced.
We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent. It is good. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
And if you want to, folks at home, you can light your home chalice now.
This is the point in in the service where Shelly would be telling you stories of her grandfather and some of the courage that he... Perfect, thank you. But since she's not here, we have a wonderful pinch hitter. Claire is going to read Sky Woman Falling for us. Yeah, so here's Claire with our wisdom story.
Good morning. So, let's see. All right. I just want to get an idea how many people in the room actively participate with Indigenous stories and culture. Can I just get a sense of who I'm speaking with? Okay. So this is a story I heard a long time ago. It's actually my children's father's name is Tayanga, which is the turtle, which is the story about the earth, the back of the turtle being the earth. And this is one of the creation stories regarding that. Sky Woman Falling. In the beginning, there was the sky world. She fell like a maple seed, pirouetting in the autumn breeze. A column of light streamed from a hole in the sky world, marking her path where only darkness had been before. It took her a long time to fall. In fear, or maybe hope, she clutched a bundle tightly in her hand. Hurling downward, she saw only dark water below. But in that emptiness were many eyes gazing up at the sudden shaft of light. They saw there a small object, a mere dust mote in the beam. As it grew closer, they could see it was a woman, arms outstretched, long black hair bellowing behind as she spiraled toward them. The geese nodded at one another and rose together from the water in a wave of goose music. She felt the beat of their wings as they flew beneath to break her fall. Far from the only home she had ever known, she caught her breath at the warm embrace of soft feathers as they gently carried her downward. And so it began. The geese could not hold the women above the water for much longer, so they called a council to decide what to do. Resting on their wings, she saw them all gather, loons, otters, swans, beavers, fish of all kind. A great turtle floated in their midst and offered his back for her to rest upon. Gratefully, she stepped from the goose wings onto the dome of the shell. The others understood she needed land for her home and discussed how they might serve her need. The deep divers among them had heard of mud at the bottom of the water and agreed to go find some. Loon dove first, but the distance was too far, and after a long while he surfaced with nothing to show for his efforts. One by one, the other animals offered to help: otter, beaver, sturgeon, but the depth, the darkness, and the pressures were too great for even the strongest swimmers. They returned gasping for air with their heads ringing. Some did not return at all. Soon only little Muskrat was left, the weakest diver of all. He volunteered to go while the others looked on doubtfully. His small legs flailed as he worked his way downward, and he was gone a very long time. They waited and waited for him to return, fearing the worst for their relative, and before long a stream of bubbles rose with the small, limp body of the muskrat. He had given his life to aid this helpless woman. But when the others noticed that his paw was tightly clenched, and then when they opened it, there was a small handful of mud. Turtle said, "Here, put it on my back and I will hold it." Sky Woman bent and spread the mud with her hands across the shell of the turtle. Moved by the extraordinary gifts of the animals, she sang in thanksgiving and then began to dance, her feet caressing the earth. The land grew, and as she danced her thanks from the dab of mud on the turtle's back, the whole world was made. Not by Sky Woman alone, but from the alchemy of all the animal gifts, coupled with her deep gratitude. Together, they formed what we now today call Turtle Island, our home. Like any good guest, Sky Woman had not come empty-handed. The bundle was still clutched in her hand. When she toppled from the hole in Skyworld, she had reached out to grab onto the tree of life that grew there. In her grasp were branches, fruits, and seeds of all kinds of plants. These she scattered onto the new ground and carefully tended each one until the world turned from brown to green. Sunlight streamed through the hole from the sky world, allowing the seeds to flourish. Wild grasses, flowers, trees, and medicine spread everywhere. And now that the animals too had plenty to eat, many came to live with her on Turtle Island.
So let's sing our children back to Kids Connection. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I would add the gratitude to the list of gratitude, the courage of Muskrat diving down. The ritual of joys and sorrows is a beloved part of most of our Sunday services here at UUCM. Week after week, we and our loved ones face numerous challenges: physical, emotional, financial. And feeling and knowing ourselves held in loving support by our community is often what gives us the courage to face those challenges. And similarly, when we are celebrating something wonderful, we so often turn to our UU family to share the good news. So in this, our familiar ritual, we choose a stone to represent all that we're carrying in our hearts and minds today in this moment, and place it into this beautiful bowl of water, symbolizing both the container of community which we form together and the rippling effect of the water, whereby our joys are magnified and our sorrows are less burdensome when their weight is shared. Those of you on Zoom may use this time to briefly chat or type into the chat, what is surfacing for you today. While those in the room may choose to come forward down the center aisle, choose a stone and place it in the water before returning to your seat by way of the side aisles. While the beautiful music plays, I'd like to invite you to breathe in peace and breathe out love as you search your heart for who or what wants to be brought forward into this moment. Well, I place the last stones for all that remains, perhaps still too tender to be brought to the surface today. I'd like to encourage you all to come up after the service and look at this bowl, because I think if there could be such a thing as a bowl full of love, that's it right there. It's sacred, it's holy, it's beautiful. Our candles were lit today in recognition of the ongoing war in Ukraine, for those suffering from hunger in Somalia and elsewhere, for those touched by the ongoing pandemic, and for Shelly and her family. To pray, you open your whole self to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you, and know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments steadily growing and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born, and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. In, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, I breathe in. Next slide. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Feel free to pick up any part. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. But sing a part, otherwise it's just me. Breathe out love. Breathe in. I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe
Our great gift is the Spirit Father and our Mother Earth. By Nisenan Vice Chair Virginia Covert, 1996. You provided us with shelter and fed us from your seeds. You nurtured us from infants, filling every need. You wanted us to grow and thrive. Was it the overall plan for us to be the gardeners, the keepers of your lands? You knew we'd need sound bodies, good reasoning, and health. But in those years of nurturing, did you forget about yourself? In those years of trial, did you stray from the original plan? Or did you start to love us as only a mother can? You gave of yourself so freely, then we demanded even more. When you tried to wane the flow, we found ways to make it pour. We thought ourselves above all other living things, and in a world that no one owned, we crowned ourselves the kings. We continued to plunder your resources, but no longer for our needs. Now the plundering that is done is for our insatiable greed. One ages quickly under stress, and you're old before your time. But like so many spoiled kids, we refuse to see the signs. My prayer is to restore your clean rivers, forests, and lakes, and reestablish our brotherhood with the raven, the wolf, and the snake. Mother, we finally know that now that our future is in your hands. A lesson hard learned. We are not the kings, but the keepers of your land.
Look who's here. Shelly, I'm so glad you could make it, and you made it just in time. Welcome.
Thank you. I have no idea who I am or what I'm doing right now. It's so lovely to see you all. Thank you for the flexibility, and yeah, walking in with what you're reading was just perfect. And then every time I hear Mom's poem, it's just every year that goes by, I feel it has more and more meaning and urgency for us. Let's see, what am I talking? We're talking about courage, right? Courage. Courage, yes.
Just 1 second.
Yes, please.
If you've made a card or if
great.
you've written your question out, you can lift it up and Jean will collect it, but now is the time. Anyway, sorry
Awesome.
for interrupting.
Thank you. Oh boy, it's just been, I keep saying this, I'm getting redundant, but it's getting older, and I've been getting a little cranky with the absurdity, the absurdity of everything. I think, we're having so many amazing community conversations around the genocide of the California Indians and the Indian boarding schools and the missing and murdered Indigenous women and the health and the urgency and critical, like Mom's poem pointed out, that the planet is in trouble. The planet's actually not in trouble. It's us who is in trouble. We have this little window of, oh, it's too hot, it's too cold for humans. We need food and air, like water, these things that only this place provides for us. And I love sci-fi, so I read a lot of sci-fi or listen to my audiobooks now. And they're, when they're out in the depths of cold, dark space, the humans are just looking for a habitable planet that's got soil and water and air. And we have it here. I love that in the poem about being the spoiled children. We don't even know, you don't want what's right in front of you. You always, it's always something else. And my mom definitely raised me with those things in my heart. And this morning, my dad was just in so much pain, and I was going to take him up. I was getting ready to leave, and I'm like, I think you should go to the hospital. Like it's been ongoing, and it's just gotten so bad. And I talked him into getting an ambulance, so that made it, so I could be here. But in those conversations of, I think it's trying to navigate the pain of my elders, even if my dad's not Native, but he lived in a certain way that gives me courage. I think I've always had the courage to talk about, he was a hardcore Democrat. I was probably a Democrat before I was even born with that side of the family, before I knew what it meant to have these conversations about humanity and seeing the divides of anything that can divide us, politically, sports teams, whatever it may be, fence lines. And on the other side of my family, my grandfather was such an incredible mitigator. He could bring any two ends together and find a solution where people shook hands and parted ways of friends, or at least maybe not even friends, but amicable and not enemies, because we can breed enemies without even knowing it. And so with that in mind, these conversations about the tribe, about our identities here, a lot of my friends and family around that, we're not Nisenan, knew that we were Native, but there aren't a lot of Nisenan around. And if I used to wonder when I was younger, like, why is it just us? Why are, there's so few? And to understand that history of where it happened to everybody, like they're gone, but we never talked about being Indian. We never talked about that. Grandpa did not want the things that he experienced in his life for his children. He just wanted them to be able to have a family, have a job, go to school if possible, to have better than what he had and what he experienced. And his experience was that total identity cleansing at the Indian boarding schools. And he had a brother that died at Indian boarding school. And there was absolutely nothing that his mom, or my great grandma, could do about it. The Indian agents would come and take the kids, and grandma said the old ladies used to just sit there and go and cry because there was nothing else they could do. Where I think bad Shelly inside would like set everything on fire, in my, how I've been feeling sometimes, which is so not okay with my family, is like to act that way is not all right. But I think these conversations take courage. And when I speak about things, I'm very careful. I over edit. I'm constantly making sure I don't want to make enemies. And sometimes just bringing up the conversation, people get defenses up, like if a settling family, or are you saying that, I didn't have anything to do with this, I didn't kill anybody. And then also on the other side, not feeling like we have a hand out and we're just a charity case, because the family has pride and they don't want to be seen as that. And yet, given this immense history and the pain that just lingers everywhere in so many topics, it's really hard to find that pride into all these. I'm always petting the pretty things, because I like that a lot. But it takes courage. And, I was born and raised in Grass Valley, and we're not the most socially aware place. Very, very here. And I love that. I remember the first time I went to Sacramento and I stayed with a Black family down there. Our choir from NU went down and stayed down in West Sacramento. And I was like, what? Like, there's other families like mine. It was so amazing. But we don't know that here necessarily. And so I have so much kindness for those of us, and I include myself, who I'm constantly putting my foot in my mouth. I'm not always politically correct because I just don't know. And so instead of being timid, I try to ask when I can. I try to say, I'm a heterosexual woman. What does that mean? And I'm so curious. I want to know, and I don't want to get it wrong. And then I want to stand up and be a good ally where I can, where my privilege shines, and I do have those privileges, even in my little poor Shelly world. Like, she has to do all the work with my cousins and stuff. I have so much privilege compared to some of my cousins. So I want to encourage this, like having those safe places where we can say, I have no idea what the correct terms are, and can somebody educate me? And I'm going to say the wrong thing, and please don't be mad. At least once or twice. If it's like 6 or 7 times and I'm just not getting it, then I get it. You can flare up a little bit. But those are the conversations that I'm so encouraging, and I'm so happy to be part of those conversations. And I just, no question is dumb. No question is politically incorrect. Well, I mean, there are, but for me, I navigate and field them very well. And I really think that's the key to really true community with real neighbors in this little tiny town that's way behind the curve of a lot of stuff, Yeah.
And I actually have a question.
Excellent.
Can you turn on the mic here, Andy? Get the handheld on. So on that note, I'll start the questioning. And I would like to know, is using the word Indian preferred to Native American, or is Native American preferred to Indian? What shall we call you with respect?
Yes, so I, here we go, right, with my family and my cousins. When I say Indian in front of some of my cousins, they get very upset with me. And they're like, Columbus, whoever that dude was, like, this isn't India. It's another label, placed. But that's what I heard my grandma and grandpa say. That's what my mom said. And it does come differently from within a community, like the things that I get to label my cousins and family, and there's not a lot they can do about it. I mean, no, but the main reason for me and using that term, because I think there are better terms. Some people say Native American. We went around like First Peoples, original Americans. It's gone on and on. Yes. And so it's gone on and on and around and around. But as long as we're seeking federal recognition, and all of the federal Indian programs are federal Indian programs, and I'm sorry, but the experience we have with the federal government is the last thing we want to do is like call ourselves something else. And they'll be like, well, you're not Indians, and so I'm like, that for me is kind of a silly and awful reason, but it's comfortable for me. And I do put that out there, me deep in the community. I still navigate this constantly. And it's probably a word that I would say most Native folks shy away from, especially in all the conversations we're having today about identity and what do you prefer to be called. And so it's just best to say, who do you who do you folks like? What terms do you use? What shall we call you?
So, Shelly,
Good morning, Frank.
good morning. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
I heard Sterling Harjo, the co-creator and showrunner of Reservation Dogs,
yeah.
highly recommended TV show.
That's great.
Does a beautiful job of blending tradition and modernity and pop culture with traditional native culture in Oklahoma.
And it's so on point.
It's
I
so
mean,
on
you just-
point. And Terry Gross asked him on the Fresh Air interview, which I highly recommend also, what do I call you? Just the question that Beth
Yes.
asked. And he said, well, my grandmother used the word Indian, and who am I to tell grandma that she was wrong? You know, so
You don't want to do that.
you don't
most
want to do
times.
that.
No.
So we have a few questions, but people feel free to write more. Can you, how can we support you in your culture as individuals, as a church?
Thank you. Moments like this is great. I noticed that they're just so, I just keep blaming it on being born and raised in Grass Valleys. There's just so many things. I'm so unworldly. And a lot of times I'm putting together these deep conversations and trying to figure it out myself, like the big why do we have to battle the federal government? I mean, Frank came along, we have another person helping with what is the path after we spent almost 8 years in federal court and lost because of the 6-year statute of limitations. What do we do now? I didn't even know there was another try. And it's a constant learning how to battle the federal government. For me, it doesn't truly exist. Like our organizations, they're not I mean, somebody would argue they're not really real. I know corporations have some rights and things like that, but they're not real. The people come and go, policy comes and go, administrations come and go, laws come and go, and that in my very limited, like a little bit of Sierra College, my education is just like non-existent. And being born and raised here, you know, that we have to figure it out. And I heard one day, Frank and Brian, we meet every Friday, like at 1:30 on a Zoom call. And we talk about these things. And I have the privilege of sitting there and watching these two fabulous minds meld together and talk about things. But I'll tell you, the one day they were talking about, I mean, it's part of the beauty because they're so knowledgeable, but they will stop and go, no, I don't know everything about that. Why don't we go back and read it? And they'll go back to, they'll start reading it. But they were contemplating, they were like, what is the actual, you know, definition of Indian? And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, what is happening? And then it was like, I think a couple weeks later, we were on to the definition of a tribe. And I was like, what is happening? But because that's how real it has to be, because no one knows. And you know, my favorite, I'm the worst fundraiser in the world because I always say, yeah, funds are direly important. But the thing for me is the stories that we hold and the little pieces of this mystery puzzle, like the box you get with 20 trillion pieces and there's no picture on the front, and we're putting that together. That's what it feels like to me. And so if somebody ever has like a hint, or if you know someone, there are so many different pieces of this nation that, you know, we're trying to keep afloat. And I look at the county, learning about their different departments and what they do, and that's what we're recreating. Is I'm dealing with all of these things with my family. And again, I sit in privilege that I'm doing better than almost, I would say at least 85%, if not 90. And that's because our families all live together in the same house and they have forever. And that I'm fairly normal's not the right word, fairly intact, you know, after having a lot of love. I'm an only child. Mom didn't have 6 kids, you know, it's just me. I had grandparents. My grandma didn't drive and it was just her and I, and, you know, I used to be a singer, but, you know, and she would say, Shelly, you know, it's not mayonnaise, it's mayonnaise. So I had all this time and love with my people. And Mom kept me away from a lot of the drinking and all that kind of stuff. And so it's the mind meld that makes me most happy. It's people just saying the word Nisenan and knowing, knowing about the boarding schools, knowing about this deep, dark history. And it's, Mom always says, it's nobody's fault. If we don't learn and a generation goes by, that's how fast it's gone. Some people get adopted. They have no idea where they're from, that's not that person's fault. But we can, as we do all this work to unearth all this stuff, we can talk about it. And I love the support, and I love to be able to talk about these hard things where I don't necessarily have to be like, oh, this courageous, because I hate any conflict. I'm like, let's just pretend that's not there. I don't want to go face on into most things. So when we're having a conversation and we're talking and earthing it all up, it makes me really excited. And of course, you can support the tribe financially through our Ancestral Homelands Reciprocity Program, which is through our nonprofit. You guys probably know all this already. But really, it's the ideas, it's the connections, it's the network, it's the community that's so important. And if we all stay here and commit to this land, sooner or later we'll all be Nisenan, maybe not genetically or whatever, but it means from among us. That's what it means. And so that commitment to place it's all about responsibility. There's no getting around it. And some of it might be fun, but most of it's just this heavy responsibility. Like, what's our commitment? Let's all be here together. Yeah.
You have a beautiful way of segging into questions that you didn't even know were coming up. But the next one I have is it appropriate for UUCM to acknowledge the indigenous culture with a Three Sisters Garden project?
Oh,
and can
absolutely.
you explain what that is for those
sure.
who don't know?
So the Three Sisters are the, other tribes have the squash. I'm so not a vegetable person. Corned beef seed, yes, I knew that. I totally didn't know that. I knew it's three and they grow together. And when the three of them live together, they do well, and they boost each other. And we didn't farm in that way. Like, literally everything was here, and we just like picked and encouraged growth here and there. But absolutely, I think anything awesome and delicious is a great way to support, because I would love to dip into other folks' cultures too, and like what's the shiny thing in your family history or your culture that when you share it, it's a good thing. I mean, I love that, and I think that would be really cool. Yes, absolutely.
I have a very interesting question for you. It might be the last, well, let's see. We've got about 5 more minutes, I think, 5, 6 more minutes. If all of what the Nisenan are hoping for comes to pass, what would the tribe do?
I mean, right now, I really want to raise this bar. I mean, it's never. If I just go back 10 years and I talk about my mom and my grandparents, my grandma was alive, and I was trying to vision with them because I'd never visioned before. I mean, I hope and I wish, and I'm always some people say superstitious, but I have all my stuff that I'm like, oh, there's all, I do all the stuff just in case, like I'm not, it's all about the good luck and just having maybe an easier path, and, but I was trying to talk with him. I mean, it's been longer than that, 15 years ago even. Like, just pretend, magic. I'm always like, magic wand, Shelly, if I don't overthink it, I know what I want and desire. And I was trying to it was mostly my mom, trying to get her to just pretend with me. Anything. Well, how much is that going to cost? She just gets, because they've never had anything. Like, they grew up so poor, lived in a cardboard box out in the forest. There's great stories around that though, with the bear fighting in the camp and tearing down just amazing stories that you can only get from living outside with nothing, but just trying to get her to vision and pretend, it was impossible. And I realized, because to do that, you have to have some glimmer of hope inside. And the deck is stacked as far as hope and visioning. and hope, wishing, with, given the history, given the poverty that everybody still lives in, and all the, just the brokenness. And we're starting to learn, I know what historic trauma is. I know I'm learning about these things, and I can see it in myself, because I think I'm okay, I'm the floating one. But if I look at myself, I'm like, I've got so many issues that are just weird. And I'm like, oh, I see where that thread is from. But, it took a long time, and for me really to get mad and like, I'm doing this work, and if you guys won't even pretend with me, then, I'm not going to do it anymore type, and it took a long time at the guidance of my mom's oldest sister, my Aunt Bertie, she would tell her, listen to your daughter. But the vision is for everybody to live together. And then Aunt Bertie saying, I don't want to live by my kids. It's funny. They want to live together, but they don't want to live like literally next to each other. I get it. But to live together, there are things where like to have somebody there in a space that would take care of their doctor appointments. Maybe they could just go and get a ride into town, and somebody in the kitchen who would have meals there, and they could just come and sit and be together. A place where they could do their cultural baskets and beading and all the stuff that they want to do so badly. Most of them can't afford the materials. I mean, that's another thing Chirps is being able to do, is provide just materials like, what do you guys want? Tell me, I need to know. But that was the center of it. Just like, I don't think $5,000 a month to me is a lot of money, and it's a lot of money to them. So we're not talking huge money to make some of these things happen, but they want to be together. And I think they see, and I'm starting to see it more because I have all these great analogies now and I get all mad, but that our rocks, our grinding rocks, and our different cultural resources that are in the ground are important. They have consultation around them. If someone's doing a project, they hire consultants to do all this stuff. And I'm like, just the other day, I was like, so I get it, that rock's very important. Like, I love a grinding rock too. But what about the people who made that, who are still here today? Frank, I got so many great ideas. I'm like, take that consultation process and put it in the hospitals and in the housing. Why doesn't it happen? It only happens in the material world. And it's weird. I mean, Americans are weird. So, but I think that, there could be a million things I could talk more on, but it's really getting the tribe before they're all gone. And I don't, I'm not trying to be melodramatic or like, but there's 141 tribal members, and the whole upper echelon of elders is gone. We went through 8 years of court. I'm like, if you're going to use the 6-year statute, why didn't you just do it in week 1 and like save, at least me in like 8 years of my life, but just to get them to a place where they'll be happy and not have to struggle. Why should they have to die in poverty given the history, anybody, anything. They retire racehorses, after they win or whatever, they get to go out to pasture and have a life. And I want that for them. And they want to be together. They want, my mom, especially, and her sisters, she's like, I want to be with my sisters. I want to talk about the culture and bring something that the kids can have when they're gone.
The focus on federal recognition, this would be a lawyer's answer to that question.
Yeah.
There's a whole title of the US Code, 25 US Code. It's called Indians. That's the name on the spine of the book in a law library. The entire thing, there's a whole set of regulations, and then there are federal laws in all the other parts of the federal statutory codes that deal with Indians. Mm-hmm. But they only deal with tribes that are federally recognized. And there's a list published by the Secretary of Interior annually, the list of federally recognized tribes. That's my notice that we're need to wrap this up.
Turn that over.
But I'll just say there are programs from HUD with money to build housing for tribes. There's money in the Indian Health Service to provide health care. There's money for grants for tribal administrative programs. There's grants for arts programs. There is a universe of programs and dollars and support available from the federal government for Indian tribes, but not if you're not on the list of federally recognized tribes. So what Shelly has accomplished is incredible. She has gotten resolutions of support from the Nevada County Historical Society, supporting the tribe, acknowledging the tribe as the original tribe of this area, and supporting their restoration of federal recognition. The same thing, a resolution from the Nevada City Council. The same thing from the Nevada County Board of Supervisors in a unanimous vote that is unprecedented. And then getting the tribe listed on the California Native American Heritage Commission list, which provides consultation in the CEQA process for environmental review of projects. So now, finally, after how long? 8 years or 10 years or something of trying. So the reason we're focused on federal recognition as the goal, and it's an uphill fight, and it's very, very difficult, and I'm happy to talk to you all if you have questions about it, but that will open the door to everything that Shelly and her family and her other tribal members are dreaming about. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I was in a room full of chairmen from tribes, some of them very wealthy now. And I was talking about, federal recognition and all. This has been like 8 years ago. And they just laughed. They were all laughing. And I'm like, what? Oh, excuse me. I know better than that. And it's like little Padawan. Like, if you think federal recognition fixes everything, and I'm like, and I don't also, I'm not, but it's way more than we have now. But really, it's that self-governance piece. There's somehow this piece of culture and the way the tribe governs itself that still is alive. It exists. And our schooling systems, and especially when you get in trouble and go to jail, like, that's not how our people did that. It's not, and so if they're putting squares in circles, like those are the biggies. Like, if we were to be able to self-govern, we do things very differently.
we'll be creating a tribal court. We'll be creating a tribal cultural resources department. We'll be creating, essentially, it will become like a little city or county government that has limited jurisdiction, but over the kinds of things that you're talking about. And so we're out of time, Shelly. I think it's time for us to,
Beautiful.
move on. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions.
And you and I did say that you'd be willing to hang out afterwards a little bit,
Oh,
but
sure.
has
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
changed
I got all the time in the world
okay,
now.
so coffee afterwards if you have more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Shelly.
Yay, thank you. Thank you all.
Actually, Shelly, maybe you don't want to sit down quite yet. If you could just come on over here.
We're gonna dance? What are we doing?
What's going on? Something really big for you. I got a really big present for you. Ken will tell you.
So for the past several years, UUCM members have voted to include an annual payment to the Ancestral Homelands Reciprocity Program, which seeks to support the original peoples of this land, the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe. So we have the big check. In our acknowledgement of those whose lands we occupy, and in our wish to be in a more just and healing relationship with the tribe, we offer this heartfelt gesture with care and hope. And may it indeed support your thriving and the restored richness of your traditional culture.
Thank you so much, everybody. Great.
Thank you.
Last time, when you got it last year, I was like, you get it to eat. Can you cash this at the venue? Right on, this is great.
I give you a little.
We'll put it in the back there. Yeah, you're not gonna. You didn't bring a big enough purse. Did you?
Right.
25% of our plate offering today will benefit wildlife rehabilitation and rescue. It's especially appropriate to support them during this service as we honor the Nisenan belief that all creatures of the earth are connected and all are important. Wildlife Rehabilitation and Rescue is dedicated to the care and rehabilitation of injured and orphaned wildlife. If you desire that 100% of your donation goes to support their work, place it in the white envelope in the collection basket. Allison will tell us, Allison on the screen will tell us the various ways we can donate.
Your generosity remains essential to our ability to sustain the work of our community. There are several ways to contribute. You may text an amount to 833-579-0483, give via our website at uugrassvalley.org, via PayPal at paypal.me/UUCM, or mail to UUCM 246 South Church Street, Grass Valley, California, 95945. Thank you.
Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these gifts to providing health, comfort, and safety to all beings.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I see that we have a lot of people to thank. The Miller team in the back, father and son. I don't know which one is which. Gail Johnson Vaughn stepped up so beautifully, like she so often does, with helping this service go, and also at the last minute pivoting and finding the story and the reader and everything. And thank you for reading the story. Thank you, Eileen, for being our chat host, as well as reading Virginia's poem. So beautiful. That is just, the more I hear that, the deeper it goes, and it's a beautiful poem. So thank you, Virginia, for giving us permission. Ginger, okay, Ginger, well, okay. Everybody that it takes to go into to make the service happen. Thank you, Frank. Thank you so much, Shelly, for coming, especially in light of your, thank you. Okay, I think we've lost our teleprompter. Okay, here's some slides, some buildings and grounds we've got going on. Next week, there's the UU 101, always good as a refresher course. Thank you. Postcards, do the postcards. You can do them right now in the library. There's some set up for you to do. Thank you, for the refreshments in the back, Beth is doing that. And then go to the website. It's not intimidating anymore. It's good. It's really good. You could just, it's fun to look around in there. So our last song today has words based on an 1895 text by Fiona MacLeod. And the music was written by our own Reverend Kevin Tarsa, who asked that this be sung as a congregational blessing on Shelly and her journey towards the growing well-being of the nation. So with that in mind, please rise as you're willing and able, and we'll sing Deep Peace. And the words, once again, by Joy Harjo in her Eagle poem, we see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born, and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. And though we extinguish our chalice light, we know that we will carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. See you next Sunday.